can see some.
Yeah. Well, return the favor for me, please. Yeah, we were I guess briefly direct colleagues during that 1-year merger prior to the demerger. So, I mean, I knew of him before that. Yeah, he's a good guy.
At 5:45, I'll call the meeting to order. If you all would rise for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you like to lead us through our agenda?
I would. The first item, I guess first we need to call roll.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Chairperson Harrison, Vice Chair Burnett,
Here.
Keith Acton,
Present.
Deborah Thomas,
Present.
Shell Childs, here, and Superintendent Horrell.
Here.
We do have a quorum, and we'll start off. Mr. Chairman, would you lead us through our agenda?
I will. The first item is the opportunity for public comment.
Chairman's welcome.
Please, yes.
So, as many of you noticed, I am not Laura Harrison. Ms. Harrison was unable to attend tonight, so I've asked Dr. Horrell, and we'll ask now the rest of the board to have their kid gloves on for me tonight as we work through the agenda. I also know we're approaching spring break next week, and so people's minds are probably not at school as we prepare for that. And I also know we're knee-deep into the middle of spring activities and seeing all of these baseball games going on right now and all that, and just excited to see all that happening.
Absolutely. The next item is the opportunity for public comment.
We do have one appearance card pulled. Vice Mayor Wesley Wright.
Thank you for having me. I'll be real quick. Mayor Roman posed the question at the last regular meeting whether the school system was interested in letting the LPS library be used for civic use, just for public access. And I think you guys have an answer for that. But before I sit down, add another question. In the future, if you wanted me to say anything, do you want me to say it in public comment, or did you want me to have or do you want to put it anywhere in the agenda? I'm fine with public comment. if I need to have any other insight, just if y'all want to think about that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Hurl, I think you're the best person to answer that question.
Yes, and I did see that comment at the meeting and certainly appreciate the question. When we were designing Lakeland Middle Preparatory School at the time, which when I look back at it was 2015 or so, it's crazy to think about, or late 15. One of the things we did talk about was designing the library so that it would be easily accessible to the public. So we made that accommodation. It's right off the main entry of the middle school. We also included 2 bathrooms. They're in the library, which is another fairly unusual kind of design choice, but we wanted it to be self-contained in case there was public use of the library. One of the things that we said publicly at the time, specifically to the Board of Commissioners when I did the design presentation to them, was that we were designing the building for public access, but we weren't planning to staff the building for after hours or public access. So certainly if the city wanted to put together a proposal where they would provide staffing for after hours public access to the library, as well as, presumably their own library collection, books and things like that. I think that's still something, we mentioned it in 2015. I think it's certainly something the board would certainly take a look at that, is my understanding. But like I said, it was more a design intention than a staffing intention. So anything beyond that would have to be, conversation or collaboration.
Other comments? Ms. Childs?
I will also note, I think it's an interesting idea. It was thought of during the proposal part. Since that's happened, we do have a lot of laws about what books are allowed in the library and how students can't have access to anything that's not considered age appropriate. So should we do this, that would have to be consideration going forward, that there couldn't be any books unless we had a totally separate section from students that they wouldn't have access to, that would be anything considered inappropriate for the students that we serve at that school.
Great point. Yeah, the Age Appropriate Materials Act.
Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Wright. We appreciate you being here.
Next item, as we start the report section, is the TLN representative update from Ms. Childs.
Okay, speaking of laws that may come to happen, like the library one. Okay, I have a few to cover, so bear with me. Ms. Thomas and I had gone to the Tennessee School Board Association Legislative and Legal Institute. So this will be the longest probably report because this will be a quick, I'll try to make it quick. I will not go into all the bills, but this will be an overview of some of the highlighted bills that were highlighted for us at that time. So first, I do want to make note that Governor Lee had his State of the State on February 6th, and one of the big pushes that he has in his agenda is he wants to raise teacher salaries. I will note that the minimum salary was in 2019 was $35,000, and currently he's raised it previously to $41,000. And now he's saying this year his initiative is by 2026, the minimum teacher salary in Tennessee will be $50,000. So that is one of his agenda items that I wanted to make note on. All right, now I'm going to move into the TSBA support because in case y'all are following along, I had emailed it to y'all. So there are a lot of education bills, and TSBA divided it into some ones they considered to be important to school boards, with ones they support, ones they don't, they oppose. The first one that was noted was SB 208 by Lowe and HB 255 by Rapper. The proposal was free school lunch and breakfast programs that the state would make schools whole on. I will tell you, since that bill already got proposed, it has already been taken off notice on February 28th. So that is a bill that will not happen. Next, I'm going to jump over to SB 484 by Lowe, HB 401 by Sherrill. This would establish a school safety technology fund, so it would provide school districts with extra funding for like automatically locking doors and things of that nature. SB 724 by Hensley, HB 786 by Fritz. This would be an occupational teaching license for honorably discharged veterans. We'll come back to the 3rd and 4th grade retention at the end. SB 1220 by White, HB 432 by White. This would be a scholarship to encourage Tennessee students, especially in areas that have a critical shortage or distressed county.
Right?
Oh,
for
yes,
those to be
teachers, sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, keep me on track since we were both, both there. SB 1305 by Bailey, HB 251 by Haston. This is another teacher special educator scholarship, and this is specific to teacher assistants being able to get their bachelor's degree in special education. So this is current employees. I'm going to hop over to the opposed list. SB 12 by Gardenhire, HB 433 by White. That one, and I believe there's another one. SB 638 by Lumberg, HB 559 by Todd. Both of these are different ways of expanding the education savings account.
Euphemism for,
Vouchers.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. SB 197 by Lumberg, HB 809 by Moody. This is establishing maximum class size by LEAs and public charter schools. I will tell you that that was basically taking away these maximum type sizes. It has already been substantially amended at this point, so it looks quite a bit different than the original bill. SB 405 by Hensley, HB 262 by Ritchie. This would make state and local elections for public office to be partisan elections, including judges. SB 443 by Lowe, HB 1271 by Cochran. This would would add requirements for homeschool students about the programs that they would be able to do at public schools. SB 635 by Lowe, HB 595 by Ritchie. This would be a specific way that school board members would be able to be recalled. SB 712 by Hensley, HB 670 by Sapicki. This adds quite a bit of first grade requirements to get promoted without giving any specifics yet on what exactly they would have to be proficient in and what that would look like to move on to first grade, or be quite a bit older than the current law is. SB 973 by Powers, HB 959 by Slater. This would allow non-resident students to enroll in school in which spaces are available. There's also another one I'm going to jump down to, that's SB 1419 by Roberts, HB 1130 by Gant. This one's even broader, where students, regardless of residency, would be able to enroll in any Tennessee school. It basically states that you can't, your address cannot be used to discriminate against a student.
We talked when we were there was a discussion about who decides where there's space, who defines that.
Correct, and that was more in the first one I named, but yes,
Yeah.
that, and again, that hasn't
We
been
don't know.
established. Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Yeah, this one says specifically, regardless of the resources of the LEA.
Yeah, it was really, the other one was where, it got mentioned because, about if there's spaces available. That one was more about the space availability. This one's just saying, there's really no perimeter. It's just saying that anyone in the state of Tennessee could go to any school. SB 1120 by Bowling, HB 1133 by Gant is the reestablishing the office of elected superintendent. However, there's an update on March 1st. That one failed in the Senate Education Committee, so that's done for this year. SB 1325 by Bailey, HB 1220 by Williams would allow a process where a school member could carry a concealed handgun on school grounds. Okay, and I'm gonna circle back to the 3rd/4th grade retention. There are about 16 bills on this, so they put them all in one subcommittee. This subcommittee is scheduled to be heard tomorrow at 4:30 Central Time. And I think I've already sent you the link, but I can send it to you if you would like to watch the committee. So we may have more information after they have a whole meeting and look at the 16 bills and the differences and which ones they want to discard, go with, amend, what that's going to look like. All right, what questions y'all got? And if Dr. Wall, you know, Toss also keeps y'all informed. There may be something that I hadn't caught yet on the changes because I did ask TSBA if they could start including in our emails like ones that have already like gone off notice or died because that was a thing last year they never did, and Emily said that was great feedback. She'd start doing that because a lot of times they just send you the new one that's about to get heard, but then you kind of miss, well, oh, that one's like died on the vine, yay, so or boo, you know, either way. Support or oppose bill.
Yeah, no, you did a great job going over them. The one piece of insight may be, I think their goal tomorrow at that special 4:30 meeting is to basically kind of consolidate down and come up with two, maybe three that most closely align with what most people are concerned about. So we're, the one that Toss is, I think right now the most aligned behind is the one let's see if I can.
While you're looking that up, I will tell you that when we were at that
Institute.
two-day institute, it was noted that this 3rd grade retention / 4th grade retention, you know, that this is the most feedback they've ever gotten on education bill, including vouchers. They said more people had contacted them, more people are upset about this. And so they are really hearing it from the public, feeling it from the public, and feel some pressure in all directions about what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I think it's the one from Haston, if I'm saying his name right. I believe that's right. But basically, we're looking for the same things we've been looking for, or opportunities to apply alternate data to make sure that we're not placing these monumental decisions on one test on one day. We want to be able to look at a more holistic look at the data that we have that demonstrates whether a student truly can or cannot read, rather than whether or not they've mastered the standards for 3rd grade English language arts, which are two very different things, as we know. So.
Ms. Childs, I know there's not a legislative item, I don't think that's made it yet, but in the governor's the state address, and then in subsequent conversations, I think I've heard comments about Tennessee considering rejecting all federal funds
Oh, I forgot
for
to mention
secondary ed,
that.
so, okay. Thank you.
I actually meant to mention that comment. Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, had said that at our institute that he would prefer that the state of Tennessee no longer take any federal money, any education money anymore. That I think it was maybe 1.8 billion annually. He says that we have a surplus and that the state can make schools whole, and that would be his preference, is to stop taking all federal money. And then there were lots of questions, including to the attorney, Chuck Cagle, later when we had the Ask an Attorney section. And, you know, he said that it would just get into the indirect funding and what that looks like. So, and he clarified a few things, because one board member had asked, like, hurricane, or not a hurricane, but a tornado comes through or a flood, and, you know, would that prohibit a school from taking that money? And he's like, no, that's a totally separate funding system for emergency disasters. So this is very specific to schools, but, you know, it's more of the indirect where you benefit because the buses ride on federal roads and, you know, things like that, that where it'd get into all the stickiness and the lawsuits. But it was also pointed out that no other state has done this yet. And it's unclear if there's a true will to do that or not, but that was one politician's comment.
Well, and it was pointed out that if we have this surplus, then take the federal money and use that surplus that we have for things that we are currently not being provided with. That would seem logical, which doesn't necessarily line up with what goes on in Nashville all the time.
Like pre-K education would be one that we'd love to get
Yes.
funded.
Yes,
Funded mandate.
that would be great, because it's still, and it's not part of TISA either. So it's still, you know, we have to provide services for preschool education, and that still seems to be something that nobody's willing to work into the formula. So that's kind of frustrating. And the example that he gave was about nutrition, and that we have all this food and we can't take it, what's left over, to Meals on Wheels, or we can't send it home with kids who are hungry. That was the example that he was giving about why we should get rid of federal money, because then we could control what happens to our surplus food, which someone answered, well, you just need to stop cooking so much food. But that was the example that was given. It didn't have anything to do with actually educating kids or protecting at-risk populations with federal money. And I don't know that there doesn't seem to be a huge groundswell of support for it. I think most of the school board members there were quite taken aback. Except a couple. Is that how you characterized most of it, or?
I just got the impression most people thought that's not going to happen and just kind of moved on. But a few people, you know, asked a lot of questions. I mean, there were certainly some concerns about what special education, federal civil rights for students would be. There was an indication that there's no will to change that, whether it's copying verbatim the federal law on that or not. But it's definitely in its infancy. There's no legal steps that have been taken to in federal funding. But I did want to mention that because that has made a lot of news stories. And so thank you for bringing that up. I meant to have that on the list.
One item, given that they're going to be grade retention, given that they're going to be putting the bills together and kind of meshing it out and working on a final plan, will we be notifying the parents at any point of the updated and latest and greatest plans?
In fact, I may put her on the spot. We've got Angie DeLosa, our assistant superintendent here, who's been working very, very closely with our team on the third grade retention. What I can say, and I'll give an initial answer, and if we need to get any deeper, I'll let Ms. DeLosa jump in. We are required by the current, well, let me say this. We're proceeding as if the current law is what will be in place this summer. So we have met our deadlines for notifying parents on not one, but 2 rounds of updates. We're required to give regular literacy reports and send those home to the parents based on the data that we do have. So what we essentially say is, you know, based on these data points that are available to us, including universal screener data and benchmark testing data, your child may fall into this category, and there's somebody that has a I wouldn't say a high percentage, but has a likelihood of falling into this category, and therefore this is what would be required if they do. So we are planning based on those numbers, and staffing and budgeting based on those numbers. If there was to be a change of plan away from that, then absolutely we would notify parents in terms of what would happen. But we really, unfortunately, won't know until they sit down and take the third grade TCAP in April, I guess, and then we get those scores back, which by the current law has to be right there at the end of May. And it would be a quick turnaround because the camps start when, Ms. DeLosa, on our schedule? June
Wow.
5th. So,
Have y'all told parents like what the camp dates are in case the ones you're sending the letters out to?
answer that question. You want to stand up, if you want to hit the, sorry. Hit the button on the right, please, so it turns red. Yeah.
So by the end of March, parents would know dates and location and time of the camp. And as we get more information, if something changes to where it's not required, then parents may have more of an option, and we'd still extend the invitation if you wanted your child to come, for some extra support. We're staffed and ready, but it may change whether or not it's a requirement. So, but by the end of March, based on the data we have, and we can predict and project students, then parents would have that information.
Right, new guy question here. Where will the funding come from to the staff that will be working that?
So we have, we've been funded for 2 camps in the past, from the federal, state level.
Yes,
State
it's
level.
state utilization of federal
Using
dollars.
federal- Yeah, they use TANF funds.
So we're at the last year of that, where we received the funds that we've received before for what's called the Bridge Camp, which is the middle school camp. So we have a budget for that. That's typically a lower number of students who attend, students entering 6th through 8th grade. So our plan is to hire a certain number of teachers that would help with our third graders, our finishing third graders, and have teachers also for any middle schoolers who are there, and have the camp at one location, which would be at Lakeland Preparatory School. Serve lunch, serve a snack, that kind of thing. But to have it in one site, because it's the funding just for that one camp that's allocated this year, as opposed to we've had funds previous years for the elementary camp, and that's no longer.
Any other questions? None? Dr. Harrell, next item.
All right, next item, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. I did have a few things I wanted to share with you. First, after our last meeting, the board elected representatives to meet with me on both our 5-year facility master plan and the 5-year strategic plan. I appreciate Mr. Acton and Ms. Thomas both for meeting with me. In the meantime, with Mr. Acton, we were really able to utilize his background in facilities management and capital planning, and talked about the possibility of contracting with an architect or engineer to do a facilities assessment. So I'm reaching out to some of our partners and see what that might look like in terms of a budget item for the district, and met with Ms. Thomas and also talked through some different options and priorities that would be part of establishing a strategic plan. Where we kind of settled on is a similar place, that it would probably be prudent to get a consultant. There are consultants that specialize in these kind of strategic plans, maybe get somebody that's outside, able to look objectively into the district, take feedback, take survey feedback. We did discuss the groups that we'd want to be sure are involved, making sure we're getting a lot of staff, parent, even student feedback as part of that, but getting some folks that have expertise in crafting a really, rich 360-degree look. So also, I've got a couple leads on some organizations that do that, and would look forward to bringing that information back to the board at a later date. We've got a number of projects that are, we always do, don't we? We've got a number of capital projects that we're taking a look at. One of those right now, I'm not sure I've noted here, we have surveying out, and in fact, right now, we're looking at proposals for surveying on the existing on-campus soccer field. The width of that field is some folks know, is 55 yards wide. It has to be, and 55 yards wide was the minimum recommendation of the National High School Sports, the National Federation of High School Sports, I think is what it is. The 65 yards width is what's necessary by the TSSAA to host regional play. We do have annex fields that are, and we did that purposefully. We made sure the annex fields would accommodate that, but we are interested in expanding the width of that field so that it also could accommodate regional play. It has lights and a scoreboard and is a convenient location. And so we're starting with the surveying, the as-built conditions of the site and taking a look at that with the possibility, if we can get our ducks in a row, that might be work that could start possibly late summer or early fall. So we're taking a look at that. We've continued to work with the Jones family on the quit claim and easements for the extension of Campus Drive, also working very closely with Mr. Plumley and his colleague Josh Lawhead. We appreciate their involvement in that process. Those documents are now agreed upon and in the hands of the Jones family, and we are awaiting execution, which we expect to happen this week. The one thing that'll keep us from turning that right back around is that we have also had some surveying that's already been done, but we're awaiting the results for the possible extension of the bus loop to connect to the annex. So this would be an internal road that I've discussed, but there may be a slight delay in getting that up to speed so we could bid those things out together. But there's certainly a consensus among the folks we work with that it would be more cost effective to do both those projects at the same time if we can. Just as a reminder, the deadline to get the Campus Drive extended all the way to US 70 is not until the year after next. Our goal is to get it completed as soon as we possibly can. So it would likely, if everything goes well, be at some point, not for the start of this next school year, but at some point during that next school year is what we'd like to do. You will see we're always busy over spring break. There will be some additional load-ins of classroom furniture. As we've discussed, when we initially stocked LPS, we basically just got the furniture that we would need for the first couple of years. But thanks especially to the additional funds that were provided by the City of Lakeland with the remainder of the USDA funds that they handed over to us, which was terrific because it was an unbelievably low interest rate. We are able to go ahead and stock essentially the rest of the building with classroom furniture and teacher furniture. So that will be happening. We're also in the middle of, we have the bids and we're doing the orders from a pretty significant track and field purchase, as well as reviewing a quote for also significant television studio equipment purchase. So things still moving along, always things to take a look at Lakeland Prep and otherwise. Did just want to note, it's exciting to see. It'll be here before we know it, but rehearsals are underway for Freaky Friday, which will be the debut, I guess, middle and high school musical. It'll be the debut musical on the LPS auditorium stage is what it'll be. We've had great musicals and continue to have great musicals in the cafetorium, but that's underway. Most of them are done. There may be a couple that are wrapping up right now, but teachers are, if they're not done, they're pretty close to done completing the case testing. And so this is the final round of case testing for this year, and this will be the one that covers all of the standards, including the ones that have not just quite been taught yet. But this will probably, or should, give us the best kind of prediction yet of how our students may do on the TCAP. I do want to note I've gotten some really good feedback on the availability, the organization, and the opportunities to utilize data this year. I think Mr. Adler and the instructional supervisors, Ms. Nelson and Ms. Eldridge, have really done a terrific job presenting the data that we have in a way that teachers can utilize. I think it's changing conversations, it's changing approaches, and I feel really good that you know, no matter what happens on the test, I think they're really pushing and doing everything they can to make sure the students have the opportunities to put their best foot forward, or their best feet forward, students' feet. From an HR perspective, we're excited. We do have a number of applications that are come in. We have some offers that have been made and accepted through the first round of staff that were posted. Mainly, we posted ahead for the new positions on the high school side, but we have some other positions that we just simply know that we're going to need, and they are posted as well. And that work will continue throughout the semester and on into the summer. So it's an exciting time. I will note, I just anecdotally, I do feel like the volume of applications is a bit better than it has been the last couple of years in a lot of areas. I know we've had a rough time the last couple of years for various reasons, but it is encouraging to see that after some time. Just to give a budget update, we are continuing, obviously, to work on the budget. It's mainly in Ms. Rosales' hands as the finance director right now. She has most of the information I think she needs to put that budget together, and we're looking to get a draft in the following weeks that I can review and that we can begin to share with the board members in individual meetings to get a look at that. ESA is changing our approach to the budget. That's the new funding formula after being under the BEP for so long. I do want to note and compliment our staff. This really hits a lot of members on our staff. There is what's possible under TISA that was not possible under the BEP is to take the TISA funding formula and cross-check it with your actual data. You can kind of fill in the boxes and come up with an estimate of what each student and what categories of students that those students fall into might generate in terms of funding for the system. And we were given a worksheet template to do that, and it was a collaborative effort with a lot of different departments filling in those blanks. And then, after we were given the opportunity to do that, we got the actual funding projection based on this year's numbers. And our number and their number was within about $35,000, which can be accounted for by just a few students, and they actually had just a different number of students. So what that tells me and tells us is that our reporting of the data in our student information system appears to be very accurate, and the subcategories match too. So that's really a testament, like I said, to a lot of different groups of people in the school system, and is very good news, for sure. Got a group working hard on completing the Innovative Schools Model grant that I alluded to. That grant is due at the end of this month. Our proposal will call for fairly significant work on the STEM lab at the high school, and specifically trying to figure out what we can do in ways of a clean room. We built the bones of a clean room for that, but we want to see if we can focus on using that for biostem applications. Clean rooms can have different levels of sophistication and cleanliness, I guess, as it were, in terms of, you know, microbes and things. But if we can do this will be something that I think would be unusual and very applicable for our students, especially in the Memphis community. A lot of applications for that in terms of biostem. And finally, I want to just note, I noted it on Facebook, but want to commend good things that happen, or recognize good things that happen. Ms. Lockhart was nominated by our commissioner, Mick Wright, as his representative for a very, very cool Black History Month program that happened down at the county commission this past Friday night, and she was honored along with just some really incredible people down there. But as always, she represented us well when they read her bio and list of accomplishments of both herself and Lakeland Elementary School. It definitely painted the picture of somebody who is a trailblazer and a leader, not only in the African American community, but in the community, period. So we appreciate Mick Wright recognizing that, and Ms. Lockhart for the great job that she does in being recognized. So that concludes my regular report.
Any questions for Dr. Horrell? Just have one.
Okay.
On the TISA notes, when you said you got within $35,000, as this rolls out the first few years, will there be an opportunity to clarify data? Oh, wait, you have 100 students marked this way, we have 105.
Absolutely. In fact, that'll be happening in real time. So it's something that apparently they'll be constantly generating those reports. It will take some additional scrutiny and making sure that everybody's tracking that. But yes, that is part of the design.
Okay.
And that's what this really initial exercise was for, I think, to help us make sure we know how the funding is generated and where to look for those numbers. And some there were some districts who reported some fairly major discrepancies, and we just didn't see that, so it was good.
Great. Shout out.
And I believe you said before that the new funding formula, TISA, that at least at the beginning, it would be more funding for us than
Yes.
BEP.
Yes, correct. We come out better on this formula.
Do we know about what that looks like the first year?
I think in the first year, it should be somewhere, and it's, I'll tell you what's a bit hard to say how much is because we're adding students. So some of the projections that they're giving us was comparing the BEP without the ninth grade, and then you add in the ninth grade. But I think we're going to come in I'll say it's multiple millions of dollars. It's not insignificant.
35,000 sounds large, but in the context of how much overall money we would be getting, it's a very, the difference is a very, right?
Yes, and I'll
Small.
even note, the 35 was just when I took the bottom line of one versus the other, and then I went back and looked at how many students they had used for their projection versus how many students we were counting. And I don't think it's because any students were missing, it's just that it accounted for it, basically.
Yeah.
So, I think we're spot on.
Any others? Dr. Hall, thank you. Next item.
Next item is the January financial summary prepared by Ms. Rosales. She said there was nothing of note in this January report. Tracking as we would hope.
Any questions about the financial summary? All right. Next item.
Next item is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
All right. Dr. Earl, are any board members, as items properly on the floor, are there any board members that want to add or remove anything from our agenda? Or potentially move anything to could we move things to the consent agenda?
You could, yes.
Or anything you want to move to the consent agenda? Motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I'll move.
Second.
All right. Second, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Our agenda is approved. Next item.
Next item, seeing as there's no items on the consent agenda, we'll move on to the discussion items. The first item is the approval of the business meeting minutes from February 6, 2023.
Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
Second.
I'll move.
So moved, sorry.
And second.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right. Our objection will approve the minutes.
Next item, discussion action on update to policy 1.106, Code of Ethics.
Motion to get this on the floor?
I'll move.
I got a motion and a second.
This item goes hand in hand with the next one, policy 1.107, but we'll take them up separately. These were essentially, there's a lot of both of these policies that are the same as what we had, but there was enough different that it made more sense just to cross out and start over. But these are both updates to the policy recommendations from the TSBA based on some changes in state law.
Questions, comments, discussion?
Make a motion to
Yes, sir.
accept.
Yeah, what you said. I'll sec-
Second.
All right, a second from Ms. Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 1.107, conflicts of interest.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All right. This item's properly on the floor. Any, Dr. Earl, will you talk to us about this one?
It's the same situation as the previous one.
To accept.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimously. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 6.2062, enrollment of children of employees.
Get this one on the floor. Is there a second?
Second?
Comes properly on the floor. Dr. Earl, would you like to lead us through this one?
This is very simply an update that notes that it's children of employees where the children are in grades K through 10.
Make a motion to accept. Sorry.
So,
My
sorry,
apologies.
are, if we change it tonight, it becomes effective, become effective until August,
I mean, that's the intent.
right? Okay.
That's how I read it.
Well, I did too, but I
Yeah.
just didn't wanna,
Good clarification.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Great point. Are you comfortable?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page there, because we don't have 10th grade places we can put 10th graders right
Correct.
now.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was going, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll close the floor discussion, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next item is discussion action on approval of policy 6.406, performance enhancing supplements.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
I'll second. Dr. Earl or Ms. Childs, do you want to lead us through this one?
Ms. Childs,
Sure.
do that. She took the lead for sure.
So I had looked at a number of other organizations, including our equivalent of the TSSAA, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, Michigan State Law, National Federation of State High School Associations, NCAA, and just found that some states, some districts had policies on this, and seemed like for our ethics, our health, reducing liability, that it would be a good step to have a policy on it. And specifically, anything that's prohibited by law, then of course it's prohibited. Anything we've got listed here that's not an illegal substance, it would be up to parental discretion, not something that the school employees or volunteers would be encouraging.
Any discussion on this item?
I've reviewed this, and I think the intent is really good, and I like what it says. I am going to ask that we consider removing the word food out of this. Just vegetables can be considered a performance enhancing food, and I just think we have a bit of vagueness there, so that's going to be my only request once we get ready to do an amendment. I can do that now, or we can wait for the discussion to go around.
Objection.
Okay.
So would you consider it a friendly amendment?
Striking
Ms.
the word
Childs?
food.
All right.
Okay.
So,
It's two
Not a problem.
places.
so we'd strike it from lines 3 and line 6.
Thank you. Correct.
Without objection to the friendly amendment, we're still considering the main motion of the policy is presented with the word food struck from lines 3 and 6. Any other discussion?
Be clear, and things that athletes typically eat, drinks, Gatorade, things like that. It's clear that those are accepted because they are not formulated with some sort of physiological advantage in mind, correct?
I think this clarifies that. I think that amendment will help, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Unless they're mixed with anything that's covered
Well, and
under
that
this.
would,
Yes,
right, and that
yes.
would be
It's
either a
covered like
dietary
they're-
supplement
Yes,
or
I believe
a
that,
medic
yeah.
or something mixed in it, right?
Correct.
I think this would be clear to coaches and sponsors.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Objection, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I meant to say aye for the yes, I'm sorry. Next item.
Now that'll go, sorry, that goes to a second reading because it's a new
Go to
policy.
second reading next
right?
month. yes.
And I apologize for asking if there was a need to to suspend the rules tonight, so I meant to ask that.
I don't have
think we
any.
have any.
Thank you for your work on this.
Yes,
We'll see that next month then, too.
that's right.
All right. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to policy 6.411, student wellness.
There's a motion to get this on the floor.
I'll
So
move.
moved. Second.
Items properly on the floor. Dr. Rohr, would you like to speak?
Yes, I will speak to this. This is an addition to our wellness policy that basically says physical activity, including but not limited to recess, classroom physical activity breaks, or physical education, shall not be withheld as punishment for any reason or used as a time to complete missing or unfinished classwork. It does note that this doesn't apply to in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, where you'd obviously miss those things based on not being part of the regular school day. This was something that is part of the coordinated school health wellness policy checklist that came up as deficient in the audit of our wellness policy. I don't believe it's state law necessarily, but it is, again, part of that coordinated school health approach. We have had conversations as a board previously about whether this should be in policy, and prior it was decided that this would just be used as procedure. I think right now the max that is being used as teachers are permitted to give 5-minute timeouts from recess for discipline problems. But this would be a change to the policy that says we're not going to withhold recess or physical activity as a punishment. Now, I think in my reading of this, a teacher would still have the right to have somebody sit down if they were not playing safely or otherwise. I think there are various reasons where a teacher might reasonably, again, say you need to sit down for a moment. But I think this is mainly dealing with the idea that if you're not good, we're not gonna go out to recess today, or you didn't turn in your homework, so you need to sit down during recess and do your homework or those kind of things. But it is a change to policy.
Discussion? Ms. Thomas?
What is the typical, students in school suspension, what is the typical rule for that? It's just the only time they're out is they even eat lunch in school suspension? Okay.
They eat lunch, but they don't go down to the cafeteria, I think. They
Okay,
eat
it was a completely enclosed.
self-contained,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, that's what I wanted to know.
We even put restrooms in there.
Ms. Childs?
I like this change because, I remember growing up and, class isn't acting right and, you got to stay in. I get the thought process behind it, but I think over, the years, we have a lot of research that shows actually when kids are angry and frustrated, being able to run out some of that at recess actually can aid in the classroom management as a tool to be used. Now, again, to your point, if they're fighting each other at recess, that's a little different. But I like the idea. I think Americans, we don't get enough physical activity as it is, and I think hopefully this will aid with having healthier students physically, emotionally, and mentally in the classroom.
Any other comments or discussion? I'll close discussion, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to 22-23 school fees.
Motion to get this on the floor.
So moved.
Items properly on the floor. Dr. Rohr, would you like to speak to this? Oh, well, yeah, go ahead and then I'll make my motion.
Okay, yeah, we have the updates here are advanced placement exam fees, dual credit course exam fee, and an OSHA 10 certification fee. I'm sorry, there's some more
there's some more
required
down
fees
below.
down at the bottom. International Thespian Society, Junior International Thespian Society, and a new parking fee that will become necessary as our students begin driving.
I was
Guess what
glad
I
I
was
was
about
sitting
to
down
ask.
for that one.
Guess what I was about to ask?
Yeah, we'll have a few that come in before the end of this year in ninth grade, we anticipate, and then we'll get another rush at the start of the 10th grade year, and
We're gonna require them to have bumper cars. Is
on
that
and on.
Can you explain the OSHA fee, what that is?
Yeah, the OSHA 10 is related to our health sciences class.
Okay.
It's a scholastic organization, I guess you'd call it, for health sciences.
Okay,
I mean, the parking fee is referring to just any pass is gonna cost $50.
Yes, it's a pass that says you are allowed to park on campus if you display this tag, and there are certain rules that apply.
Okay, so, sorry. OSHA and not HOSA?
Oh, that may
HOSA?
be HOSA. I think that may
It's
be a
HOSA.
typo. HOSA is the club, the OSHA 10, that's right, the OSHA 10 exam. I'm sorry, I said it incorrectly. You're right. HOSA is the scholastic organization. This is a safety exam that the students take
Okay.
that is one of the, thank you, I misspoke.
No, it was for my own brain, because I was like, wait a minute, because I've seen the HOSA things come up in the,
I think what it does, if I recall correctly, it allows them to take certain field trips, for example. It
Okay.
allows them to participate in some other activities in the class if they've taken this OSHA 10
certification.
exam.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
If we could, I would like to consider one of these fees separately, and I'll explain why. If we could consider the local dual credit wellness course exam fee separately. That's an exam fee that would be paid to my employer. And so I would have to recuse myself from voting from that one, but I would like to vote on the others. I'd move to consider that fee separately and the others as a group.
Make a motion to approve all the highlighted fees outside of the OSHA 10 certification fee.
I don't think that's the one.
Dual credit.
The dual credit.
I apologize, dual credit fee.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I make a motion to approve the local dual credit wellness course exam fee.
All in favor?
I second that motion.
Or second, sorry.
And
All in favor?
then, aye.
You gonna vote?
And I'm recusing myself from that
Okay.
vote. Your indulgence on that. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on math textbook adoption.
Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Item's properly on the floor, Dr. Worrell.
I'm going to introduce our Assistant Superintendent, Angie DeLoso, who's already spoken. She has taken a leading role on our textbook adoption process and has worked with some other folks. I'll go ahead and say, if that's okay, most notably, Emily Nelson and Carrie Eldridge, our instructional facilitators. They've, as a team, have worked very, very hard on this, and I'll let Ms. DeLoso take it from here.
Thank you. This is a process we take very seriously, because when we select a curriculum, it will be for the next 6 years that we'll be implementing this math curriculum. These companies provide updates over the years, but this is what we would be implementing. So I was just going to share briefly with you the process that we followed and what we selected, how our teachers voted, and why they chose this particular curriculum. So in the fall, we began selecting our textbook committee, and the principals, school leadership teams were involved in that. And so we have a group of 26 teachers that cover every grade level, every math course that we offer, along with assistant principals, instructional supervisors, and representatives on the committee for English language learners, technology, because that's such an important part of integrating that in all of our special learners. So it's a large committee, but it's who we wanted to be able to look at all the different choices. In Lakeland, we connected with the other municipal instructional supervisors and got ahead of the state caravan dates, which means the State Department brings all these vendors together, and you can sign up by district for a slot where they all come to you. That would have happened in January. With the other municipal districts, we had created our own caravan, and they came here to Lakeland Prep, and that happened December the 8th. So our teachers saw the vendors. Arlington recorded the presentations for us so that our teachers could even take back to their grade level teams, other teachers who weren't there, so they could see the recordings, see the samples. On January 25th, we had a parent preview day, which is part of the process. So Ms. Nelson and Ms. Eldridge had all the samples available at Lakeland Preparatory School, and we had a few parents come. and look at these options here. So during the fall, our teachers had samples, they had access to the different curriculum. They worked in their grade level teams to narrow down their top 2 or 3 choices. And our teachers are quite gifted at what they do and very high level with what they're looking for. And so the instructional supervisors and I put together a follow-up and shared all the kind of look-fors that we wanted them to do before we got back together in February. So our teachers, what they were looking for is strong, differentiated materials to teach all their learners, materials for remediation and materials for enrichment that are built into the curriculum. As students start answering problems, things are differentiated within the curriculum. They really care a lot about the question types and the problem types. What they're finding with the current curriculum that we have is they've been creating their own tests because they want question types on tests that closely align to the TCAP. So they were looking for problems like that within the tests that this math curriculum developed. The ease of use with technology, when we're using Schoology, when we're using Chromebooks, when we're using Google Classroom, we needed to integrate efficiently and easily and for our teachers and students to access it. There are some standards that are very highly tested in the TCAP and to a very broad depth. And so they were looking for lessons and practice problems and tests that covered every single standard to the depth that they needed it to. Sometimes programs might cover it kind of on the surface but not get to the depth that we need it to, and that's how we're teaching here in Lakeland. They also wanted within the curriculum resources built in for small groups of students. We see where our students need to work on number sense and logical reasoning from kindergarten through high school, so they wanted to see a good sequence for that. And they wanted intervention materials based on skills and standards. They looked at all that. Then we got back together February the 20th because the teacher said, I teach 3rd grade, I want to be with the 5th grade teachers. And I want to know what the middle school teachers are looking for. And now we're adding more courses in high school. So we got together that day and looked at how the standards and the programs were aligned. They had their top couple of choices. Then we voted on February the 23rd. And so when we synthesized the results of that, we had teachers ask, can we rank order, like our top 3? So we looked at votes by rank order, and we also looked at the 26 individual votes. And the program that's in the next agenda, or the next sheet there that you have, is the Envision K-12, which is owned by the Savas Company in Pearson, is what was the #1 vote by individual votes and ranking. So it was #1 across the board there. And it was for kindergarten through 12th grade, which is great for consistency as students move from grade to grade and school to school. So what we are recommending, Dr. Horrell, and then to go before you all, is the Envision Mathematics K-12 for Tennessee. And again, the teachers appreciated how the depth of the standards were embedded. There's 100% alignment with all the Tennessee math standards in this program. There's a lot of digital and print components. It does have its own math screener and diagnostic built in. So every student can take a screener, and then teachers can get diagnostic reports, throughout the year. A lot of tools to enrich and remediate the curriculum. The platform is called Savas Realize, and that's the platform, the technology platform that integrates specifically with Schoology and Google for Education. Another feature our teachers like, if they have their own PDFs of practice problems or activities that they like, they can upload it, and it'll be accepted by their platform. Students can write on it, edit it, that type of thing. A lot of videos embedded even for parents, to show parents how to help kids work problems. One other feature that I thought was neat, for grades 3 through 5, they call it Savvy. But if students are working homework problems or practice problems and they answer it a certain way, it's going to adapt to how they answer it right there and give them notes and help. And so it may move them up within that standard, or it may reteach something so it adapts to them. They do have that for all grades, but 3 through 5, the thought is that students are reading more and can read some of these notes and resources and that type of thing. So just one other little piece of information. We've been using Savas in the high school this year. When we went to open the high school, we looked at several math programs. Overwhelmingly, even at that time, our middle and high school teachers liked it. It works a lot better with Chromebooks than iPads. So with Chrome, so we have a little more of an ease of use there. We've added some trainings for teachers, to make sure they understand the program. I think that's been helpful, and they are updating their platform to try to make it a little more user-friendly. So that's the long version of what we're excited about and wanted to recommend.
So, Ms. Tillis, go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I have a couple questions. I was the one that emailed Dr. Horrell and was like, oh, can I get a little more just to look at it and see? And I watched a little bit of the video, and one thing that was cool to me was like where the teacher could take a picture somehow of what the work the student was doing and then put it up on the screen and be able to interact with that, and then use it for like parent-teacher night too if they're conferencing with the teacher. So that looked like pretty useful. But the couple questions I had was, I know it says K through 12, but then it also says through like Algebra 2 geometry. So will there be another one purchased for the higher maths later? That's my first question.
Great question, and I think because that's what we offer right now, that's what we were looking for. But yes, it does have options for pre-calculus and those types of.
Okay, so is that like already purchased, or we just add, like those would be add-ons when we start offering it?
Yes, it would be add-ons when we start offering that.
So this process is for the board to approve it. It's not necessarily to purchase. So in other words, the board could technically approve it and we never purchase it. That's not what we intend to happen. But what this does, it allows us to purchase it as we need it. So we wouldn't, presumably if they're grade levels or courses, we don't need to purchase. I'm not sure how the packaging works, but theoretically,
That makes sense.
you guys are authorizing this to be purchased and used. Yeah.
Okay, and then my last question was, I noticed that there were options for print books versus digital. Would the younger grades have printed textbooks, or like how would that look for them?
So oftentimes these vendors sell bundles, which is both, and that's often a good deal to consider. Our students would have both. And the consumables, the student print textbook, workbook, they would replenish those every year for us, and they would be updated, with any updates.
That's great, because I know younger ones, it's kind of hard to do things electronically. So I'm glad to hear we'll have options based on what works best per grade level.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is for 6 years, is that right? This is a
That's
6-year
true.
adoption, okay. I guess this is for Lakeland, obviously. Do we know how our lakes around the county are gonna go? They given any sort of signal of what they're looking at?
We have, and we have discussed that. I'd probably be wary of
I got you.
sharing something
Fair.
prior
If
to.
it's not public, then
Their,
it's.
I mean,
it's
if their
not-
board
yeah.
hasn't approved it, they could.
Fair enough, fair enough. If, I keyed on the little bit that you said about the part where it helps parents. As somebody who's trying to help my child with some of the math questions, what a phenomenal opportunity there. That's much needed. Sometimes I feel like I need to go back and retake some classes after helping out with.
We'll even give you a grade.
I may need it. So, but great. Well, thank you for this presentation.
It was a tremendous amount of work. She said this is the long version. I assure you this is the short version for all the time and effort that they put into doing this. And she did note that they recommend this to me. I am in turn obviously recommending it to the board. I will note there were 3 documents that are attached to the agenda. That third district selection of materials approved on waiver, that's the third document that boards are asked to approve if necessary. This is not on a waiver. This is one of the ones that is on the list of approved vendors. So even if you approve the total item, you can approve that, but we're not submitting a waiver, just to clarify.
And I'll just add, it's a very strong program in the area, in the country, and in other countries. When you think of Pearson, who is also the same platform that we take the TCAP, they have a lot of insight into these types of, ultimately, the test questions and the standards. And this particular program was designed specifically for Tennessee and Tennessee state standards. So we're excited to see how the process unfolds and start teacher training when appropriate.
Let me say one more, I guess, item of praise here if I can. One thing I asked the committee to do was really push the timeline and get this approved as quickly as possible, just so we could avoid any supply chain or implementation issues that we might foresee. So I appreciate them bringing that. We are, I think, well ahead of schedule to get this done in March. So.
Idea of having the summer for teachers to plan
Use
and
it,
prep.
Get to know it, yeah.
I was gonna say, I appreciate that you included so many people who looked at it through so many different lenses. The students who, are gifted at math and they're just they're wired that way. And then the students who really struggle and need those differentiated materials and need the remediation strategies and the intervention strategies. So I feel really more than comfortable that we've had so many of our educators look at this from different perspectives and they all chose it. I mean, it really speaks volumes for what it looks like it can provide and how it can help kids who are at different levels.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it looks good.
And I have a question. I forgot to ask you this one, so I apologize. What adoption is this replacing? It's our current
Our
adoption.
Houghton Mifflin Go Math.
Okay. Great. And then just one comment. Thank you for that. My comment is, and Dr. Horl and I talked about this, these adaptive learning platforms are incredible tools for teachers when the teachers are still teaching. What I have seen in other educational settings is many times teachers abdicate their role as a teacher to the software. And I just need to make sure I say that that's not our plan, nor would I expect to hear comments like that after adoption. That's important to say, because I've seen it happen and had people go, but this is what it does. And that's not what it does. It's meant to help supplement, your terms, enrich and remediate. And so I just think that's important. And I don't think that would be a comment we'd hear from any of our parents about any of our teachers, but it bears saying.
I think our teachers are more likely to make their own and make it work for them. So thank you.
Any other discussion?
I will recuse myself from this vote. I do not work in the textbook division, but I do contract with Pearson in English Language Arts, so I will recuse myself from this vote.
Discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any recusals? All right. Thank you, Ben. Next item.
Next item, thank you, Ms. Deloso. Next item is discussion action on FY 22-23 budget amendments.
Motion to get this on the
So
floor?
moved.
I'll second.
You have these before you. The amendments are all within the 142, which is the federal programs category. This is as you can see, the almost minuscule changes just to shape these up with the actual allocations.
Motion to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Dr. Roll, next item.
Next item is discussion action on the ESSER 3.0 public plan for remaining funds addendum.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, items properly on the floor, Dr. Horrell.
Yeah, and I will, if I can, again, speak to both 10 and 11 kind of jointly, although they're slightly different. ESSER 3.0, as the name implies, was the last of the large amounts of federal funding that were given in response to the pandemic, and these funds came in these funds were allocated to be used by school systems, and we were able to take advantage of them. We used the bulk of the funds that were allocated to us in ESSER 2 and 3.0 on staffing to assist with students and implementation post-pandemic, and we also use them for facilities. So it was allowable expenses to deal with things like air circulation and additional space for student circulation and social distancing, and we were able to, which simplified things, kind of put these large buckets, I guess, of the funds that were used. So even though these documents note, I think, a balance of $159,000, all of our ESSER funds actually have been allocated. Some of them have not been actually expended because we're waiting on, the contractors or vendors to finish their work. But Tammy Wilson, in particular, our federal program supervisor, did a tremendous job of staying on top of this. There's some required federal reporting. There almost always is if you have federal dollars to be spent, and they require feedback from our stakeholders and sometimes very specific categories that sometimes seem, fortunately, to be a bit antiquated, talking about, what are we doing to in terms of contact tracing and things like that. There are questions that we don't do those things right now because fortunately it's not been necessary. But what these are documents essentially that are required by the federal government to get family and community feedback, which we have, and put in these documents to report back to the federal government how the funds have been used. So I do recommend approving both. Again, they're similar but have slightly different intentions, I guess.
Motion to approve ESSER 3.0 public plan for remaining funds addendum.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Dr. Roll, next item.
Next item is discussion action on ESSER 3.0 safe return to in-person instruction addendum.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
I'll second. These items are out there on the floor. Dr. Roll, is there anything to add from the previous?
No additional comments on this.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Dr. Roll,
Thank
next
you,
item.
Tammy Wilson.
Oh, yes.
Just reading through this, I know this was a heavy lift, so I'm really appreciative.
She does a tremendous job.
Dr. Roll for educating me.
You're very welcome. Next item is discussion action on update to the 22-23 school board calendar.
Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Properly on the floor, Dr. Horrell.
This has Ms. Harrison's name next to it, and I will note that this was a scheduled absence for Ms. Harrison. She gave us a couple months' notice that she would not be here at the March meeting, but she did sponsor and request this change to the school calendar, and this was also confirmed based on some conversations I had with other board members about their availability. The April meeting, among other things, will be the budget meeting. It's obviously a very important meeting to have all the school board members at, if we can make that happen. And there were some conflicts that were going to happen with the business meeting on the 10th. So the proposal here is to change the school board calendar so that there will not be a work session, and instead the business meeting would be on April 3rd.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Set, thank you.
Next item is discussion action on new LSS job descriptions.
Bring to the table.
Okay.
All right, items properly on the floor, Dr. Horrell.
All right, we have two job descriptions that we are proposing and requesting that they be posted immediately, although the maintenance and facilities manager, which is the first, we're requesting that we could hire that as soon as possible. We have the funds in the budget to do that at this point. And then the middle high school deputy principal is a new position that we're requesting be posted and hired for the 23-24 school year. And I'll talk briefly about each of those positions. To date, somehow, in the 9.5 years of Lakeland School System, we have not had a maintenance and facilities manager. I've been acting in that role among the hats that I've worn during my time here. I've been more than ably assisted by Dr. Jim Mitchell, our consultant, who's been invaluable, and certainly we've had contractors and architects and engineers, so I don't want to sound like I didn't have any help. But certainly with the number of facilities that we have now, I think it's time or beyond time to have someone whose sole job is to make sure that the buildings and the facilities function as intended and is able to immediately and expertly, hopefully, address repairs, additions, changes, problems, or anything like that. I'll also note that our plant managers, Mr. Parker and Mr. McCain, do a tremendous job with facilities and maintenance on their own, but this really, there really should be somebody beyond that that's kind of the first point of contact for these things. So that's the position that I'm requesting that we be able to post and hire as soon as possible. Middle high school deputy principal is a new position, and it's really a new position, I think it's not one that existed in legacy Shelby County schools, so it's not one that I've seen in our kind of neighboring school systems. There are similar positions in the private schools, but this is essentially a second in command, a number two, a true deputy for Lakeland Preparatory School. As we know and as we've discussed, we have three separate and distinct grade levels or grade bands in there. The fifth grade is technically an elementary grade band. We've got the middle school and then the growing high school. So this would be a person that would be just under the principal, but over the assistant principals and vice principal in the organizational chart. This person would work directly with the principal, Ms. Martin, and would stand in for the principal as necessary if she was unavailable or off campus for some other reason. We are specifically requesting in the job description that this be someone with at least 3 years of high school administrative experience. So as the high school grows, certainly we want to grow our capacity, our bandwidth, our level of experience in high school grades. And we're also asking that this person be somebody that would be comfortable working with an emphasis in business and operations. And the thought being that this would free up the principal, Ms. Martin, to focus more on culture and instruction. As I've said, it's big there, y'all. It's massive. There's a lot of stuff going on at Lakeland Prep with these multiple grade bands, and Ms. Martin does an exceptional job managing it with the staff that she has, but I really do feel like having a true second would allow her to kind of shed some of those things. She'd still ultimately, go to bed at night knowing she's in charge of all of it, but it is good to have a number two that can take some things off your plate in this situation.
Discussion?
I think this is great. I admire you for, fixing things at times, and being Johnny on the spot, I think this is,
Driving a U-Haul.
I mean, you do it all. I think it's time to get these positions in place. I've been part of a growing company, started from, ground, a startup, and you wear many hats in the beginning, and as you grow, you have to delegate some of those responsibilities out. So both descriptions look very good, and it sounds like this facilities and maintenance person will go out for posting once approved, if approved.
Yes.
And then the other would go out when?
They would both be posted immediately because we want to get a head start. We're about that time of year where in the school cycle, folks will start looking around for what's going to happen next year. So this would post now, but not start until this person's likely contract ends at the end of the year, and then they'd start with us July 1. The maintenance person, since they're likely not on a school type cycle. We'd like to post and see if they could start as soon after spring break as possible. My real emphasis is hoping to get that person on board for the summer so they can be part of summer cleaning and waxing and maintenance and get to know the facilities and the campus where there aren't quite so many people around, and maybe take some time and get to know those systems.
The maintenance and facilities manager, that is not only the brick and mortar parts, but the fields and the facilities that are down at the fields also.
They would oversee it, so
Right.
that's, I would kind of hand off. Right now, I'm the person that deals directly with
Right.
those vendors and specs and checks and make sure that, you know, if they have an issue, they call me, and so they would, yes, they
Right.
would be over those things as well.
And Ms. Martin, I don't know how you've done all you've done up to this point, but I'm so in favor of this deputy position so that you can, you know, not worry about those things and be able to spend your time worrying about the kids and instruction and supporting the teachers and supporting the instructional staff. So these are both great ideas.
I had two questions. On the maintenance and facilities, is this the person that gets to make a popular call when lake fields are closed for weather, or is that a different person?
No, that would be
That would be one of the
that
many
type of
duties this
person.
person.
Yes, yes. Mr., Mrs., whoever, can you go check the fields and see if they're suitable for play?
Gotcha, okay. And then my next question was the middle high deputy principal. So just for clarity, this would be, this person would be the second in command overseeing grades 5 through wherever we ended eventually?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And as long as that campus exists, whatever the grade bands are that are there,
Yeah.
this person would be over. So
Yes.
if we build another school somewhere down the line, it would still be, it
the
might be
thought.
2 grade bands instead of 3.
That's right, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Dr. Hurl and I spent an hour on the phone Friday, I think, talking about this and other issues. I'll admit hesitancy in filling either of these positions originally. One of my concerns is that we're paying attention to not being administrative heavy, and the salaries should go to teachers. That's where we need to spend our money. However, after spending, this was probably 10 minutes worth of our conversation, Dr. Hurl clearly convinced me that we should have already done this, that we waited too long, almost, that we're at the point where Ms. Martin is going to look like me if this continues. And so I appreciate the time you spent walking me through what that looks like to bring me to a place of yes, to get that comfort level to vote for this. So thank you for that. And Ms. Martin, I apologize we didn't have this sooner. Any other discussion? And in that case, I'll call for the vote. All in favor,
We're
say
gonna
aye.
vote on these together.
I think you can vote on them
Yeah.
together. We've done that in the past.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's one-
Okay.
yeah.
I make a motion.
Thank you for asking.
Yes.
We're voting on both items on this
Both
agenda
items,
item.
yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is discussion action on update to the 22-23 salary schedules.
Motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Items properly on the floor. Dr. Horrell.
So these are our policy requires that the school board approve new job descriptions, approve job descriptions and salary schedules for new positions. So we have the salary schedules that we are proposing for these. I'll note that the deputy principal would be, again, as I noted, between the principal's salary and the assistant vice principal salary, which are actually they're the same. The vice principal is an annualized salary. The assistant principals work 11 months, I think, in all cases now. And the maintenance facilities manager, we feel like this would be a good, at least starting point for that position, and think it'll be competitive and attract the type of individual we're looking for.
Discussion on this item? None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Dr. Horrell.
Next item is discussion on the TSBA Volunteer of the Year nominations.
Motion, do we need to move to get this on the floor?
Yes, so moved.
All right, so moved.
Second.
Items properly on the floor. Dr. Horrell.
This is just a conversation about our annual, it's not an obligation, it's an opportunity to nominate somebody as the TSBA Volunteer of the Year. Ms. Thomas has agreed again to handle the actual nomination for whomever is selected. At this point, I haven't had anybody reach out about somebody that I think mind for this one, but it's an opportunity if anybody thinks of somebody. I think we still hit the deadline if we don't.
We would have to approve in April, and I believe the deadline is May the 1st.
So,
I think that's correct.
so it gives us some
It
time
gives
to
us some
think
time,
about it.
so
and-
give feedback to Dr. Horrell individually, and then if we have a nominee, we'll bring it to the April meeting.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Thomas, for taking that up again.
You're welcome.
So there's no action for us to take? on
Correct.
this. All right.
Could you send, you may have already, I don't, but I'm not sure, but if you haven't, could you send us,
I'm pulling up right now. So
what the,
Criteria?
yes, thank you, what the criteria is that TSBA, looks for, just to kind of help us, think through that.
I'm gonna send you a link right now, and I did double check. It's application deadline May 1st. So if we have the person in mind April 3rd, that gives me plenty of time to go talk to the person and put together a good application.
Excellent.
Welcome.
We have so many volunteers, it's hard to
We do.
narrow down sometimes who it is. All right. So, Dr. Roll, our last item?
The last item is the review of Policy Manual, Section 5.
Is there a motion to get this on the floor? Is there a second?
Second.
That is me, and we have nothing to add at this time.
Anything else from any other board member on policy?
I have not, but let me say I appreciate the policy committee and meeting and reviewing those things.
Next item.
Next item is the announcement section.
Announcements.
Busy time. The weekly roar is a lot, but it's a lot easier to go down through there now and, see what applies to you and keep scrolling if it doesn't. But there's a lot going on, so you're not at a loss for what to do with your spare time. Go out and find something, go see the kids. Freaky Friday is the last Friday of the month, I think, right?
That's right.
And then we have you go to campus now. Dr. Horrell and I have laughed about this because somebody referred to the middle school as the old middle school in an article about how the high school wing was just built. And we said, yeah, the old middle school, but you go down the campus now and every place is buzzing with groups doing this and doing that, practicing and auditioning, and it's just, I think I don't know that we're surprised, but it's sort of kind of like the fulfillment of what we thought it was all gonna be. But it is a little jolting to see all those people and know they belong to us now.
That's right.
It is, and I
Paul and I were
think,
talking about the deputy principal. He said, just think about the recent movie. It's everything, everywhere, all at once.
yes, I feel like that's a good summary of
Yeah.
kind of what's happening. And I will note it, because we all get this experience, but it's amazing to me, the number of students that are involved in these activities and the focus of the students. And they're being led by these adults that care so much about their success in whatever area it is that they're working on. It's just really, it's inspiring. I mean, it's certainly the reason I think we're all doing what we're doing, but it's great to see at both schools, frankly, and obviously.
Any other announcements? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.